There's blood and gore.
What?
I know,
PoE?
right? Yeah.
The game where there's a beheading at the start? Hello and welcome to Front Seat Gamer, episode 189. I'm Nick. I'm here with Paul.
Hello.
And Blake.
Hey.
And it's been exactly 2 weeks since our last episode. Don't look it up. We've been kicking
I remember
it off.
that.
Huh?
I remember that for sure.
Yeah. And you've been here you were here for the last episode as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't replace you at all.
Nah, we talked about games.
Yeah.
Like we usually do.
Yeah, exactly. Like we always talk only about games.
Yep.
We don't get sidetracked.
That's what we're famous for, is not getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
We're so famous.
Yeah.
We have so many listeners. We're so famous.
We remembered a bunch of things. We didn't look it up. We remembered it accurately.
We're doing that with our own episode now.
Yeah.
Like, what did we talk about? I think we talked about this.
Should we kick off with some questions?
Hit it.
We've been kicking off with questions lately, so let's do it. Amongolan says, can't wait for a Satisfactory update in 2 weeks. Won't spoil anything for now. Well, good news for you. It's been exactly 2 weeks.
Yep. What 2 weeks?
I still haven't played it. I know I said I was going to, but
I stopped playing it. I've discovered those games really aren't for me. I've played a few types of that game, and I really usually enjoy the first chapter.
yeah.
And then it's like, great, you understand the basics. Here's complexity. And I go, no, thank you.
I think we
This feels like work.
We talked about this. We've talked about this before, and you showed me your factory when you were playing it, and you were saying that you very quickly were getting to a point of like asking yourself, "What's the point of this?"
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get it. I get it, and I was doing that too.
Yeah.
And then I just
You push through.
blinked, and like 6 hours would go by.
I actually love the factory games. I really do. I got
That's
really into Dyson Sphere Program.
Oh, cool.
That one's good.
Yeah, that's surprising. You
I haven't played Satisfactory though.
tried Satisfactory.
I bought it ages and ages ago when
Yeah.
it was like pre-order or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came out and I think I was busy or something and just never played it.
Okay.
I'm going to finish the rest of
Yep.
the Amongolan question here. It's really just more of a statement. He said, regarding the tutorial in AoE Mobile, you only know it's a true mobile game when the tutorial forcefully teaches you how to spend in-game currency that you buy from it. Absolutely, it does
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I tried to play a bunch of mobile games, but as soon as the forced tutorial starts, i.e. you're unable to click anything else, I'm instantly out. Same if the game makes you watch an ad every 3 minutes. It's fine if you need to watch it to get some power-up, but not just to keep playing. I have
Yeah.
got a wonderful game to talk about after we do some more questions.
Okay.
You already know what it is, Blake, because I've made
Yes.
you look at it.
Yeah.
Paul, I think I mentioned it to you, and you're going to have to hear about it for anywhere between 5 and 40 minutes.
Okay.
Slippery Jim 8, the famous Slippery Jim.
Yeah.
We've recently seen him posted on PC Gamer. Congrats, Jim.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We have a bona fide celebrity listening to our very famous podcast. Up to number 53. Glad to see you're still doing the Kermit-ish voice. What does that mean? Surely you're not referring to me.
I think yes, it is. I should have gone back and listened to what it was, but I'm quite sure it's like when you put your like dumb person voice is a Kermit voice.
Oh, well, I'll have to switch to Miss Piggy. Much recommended Pachincremental for a Pachinko incremental game, though you're upgrading the balls more than building the arena. Satisfactory, I think he must be referring to, there was a game I played a while ago, probably around episode 53, that was an idle game with balls dropping. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Slippery Jim, you can tell me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since episode 53. Satisfactory and
2
Factorio
weeks.
games are things that I feel I would enjoy, but when I try to play them, I just hate it. Something about seeing the tech tree treadmill extending to the horizon gives me paralysis.
Got
Yeah.
a kindred spirit there.
No, I think he's quitting earlier than I would, which is probably wise. I'm quitting. I'm like, oh yeah, this looks like there's tons of fun and engaging stuff to do. And then I get to a point where it's like, great, To make the next step, you have to rearrange 14 factories, and it's going to take you 3 hours just to get the resources to do that. Or you can start generating the resources that will take you 12 hours. And I'm like,
There is a point where it starts to feel like work. Like I did get to a point where I was spending, like I'd spend a day and be like, okay, today I need to like do this. Like I've got access to a new resource. I need to sort this out, this new resource chain to make this thing. And that will be like a weekend of work,
yeah.
you know? And then at the end, I'm like, great, now I'm
ready to
on
play the
to the
game.
next thing. Yeah, now, no. Then it's like, okay, now on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah,
the one
that
component
sucks.
I need
I'm sorry.
for something.
That sucks.
On to the
It
next
just
thing.
sounds like it's too slow. Because generally, I would say most of the factory games I've played don't take that long to rebuild things.
I think it ramps up.
Right.
Like you get through the first sort of like levels pretty quickly, but then as you start getting more access to like more resources, it starts like you start then basically building other factories way out near other resources.
And funneling the products.
And that needs all the infrastructure and stuff of some of the basic things.
Okay.
I think Satisfactory's biggest enemy is also its biggest draw, which is that it is a first-person shooter
Yeah.
factory game. And the problem with that is when it comes time to do any serious infrastructure changes, you're not just looking at a top-down
Yeah.
screen of
Yeah.
your factory and like able to just mouse click away all the stuff and click and drag and all this junk. You have to walk over to the spot, delete, build, drag. Like you have to move your character around to build the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it is stretching things out 10 or 20 times just in terms of the
And you
time scale.
can't shift perspective or anything.
You
top
can
down?
by building a tower
Yeah,
and climbing
you
on
can
top
build
of the tower.
Okay.
I found, did you get into, you probably didn't get into using any of the blueprints?
No.
So this
I know that this is a bit of a time saver.
This has sped things up for me a lot because, but I had to get so far into the game to understand like why I want to use them. And like the blueprints I have now are there because I realized this method I was doing where I was like stacking smelters on top of each other.
Yeah.
So you'd go from the iron mine, and then it would like split off into like 3 smelters or something like that, and I would stack them up so the footprint
Was much smaller.
is much smaller. And I was building the same thing over and over, and realized this is when I need to use blueprints because you get access to the ability to use blueprints fairly early on.
Yeah.
But I was like, why do I need? I don't.
I know exactly why I need to do it. I just haven't done it, and I don't want to do it because it sounds
Well,
like work.
I started doing it, and so like now I just have these modules of these like stacked constructors and smelters and other buildings that I just like when I build something now, it's just these tall as like towers that I'm putting down in one chunk.
You know what I really don't like about that game is the power management.
Oh my god, yeah, power management.
It sucks.
Yeah,
like
power management.
It's not fun.
I spend honestly
it's it's a whole mini job.
Yeah.
Of like just ignoring the like how you actually have to set it up, which is annoying. The you have to then upkeep the generators.
Oh,
and I know
yes,
that does
yes,
change.
that
you
does
get
change.
coal,
But,
and then eventually you get
even
nuclear.
then there's still.
But there's so much upkeep, and then even when you've got that, like even if you have all that stuff perfectly optimized, it's like, okay, great, I've got this all this stuff down. Oh, I need to add another factory here. My power lines are maxed out. I need to add a pole. Well, now I've short circuited the whole thing.
Yep.
Now I need to run over to the generator and turn it off and on again.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah,
you don't
that
need
sucks.
to do. You don't need to make that a chore.
Yeah.
You can just say, okay, you removed the thing and now it's back on. That would be the easiest little change. But they punish you in the most obnoxious way.
I do agree, but also I do like the feeling of pulling that lever and having it go chunk. I really like that.
Do you like doing it 14 times? Because
I even like it when I'm like, why isn't this working? And it's like chunk, chunk. You know, I don't know, man. I'm a weirdo.
yeah, no one's
But
saying you're not like.
I also agree for the efficiency of it. Like when I'm really trying to figure something out, and it's like, you know, I'm trying to build like a new production line somewhere, and then the power goes out, and then it's like now I have to like sidetrack to figure it out. Yes, that is annoying.
Yeah, and or when it's like it's going out because there's some spike in productivity. It just happens that 2 factories happen to produce things at the same time.
Well,
and then,
I was getting into I was getting into like I've got coal factories now. I've got oil factories now,
By the way,
which is even crazier.
I quit when I built my first coal factory,
Yeah.
and I was like, you have to connect water to the thing, you have to connect power to the thing, and then you have to like, connect the thing to the grid. I was like,
All you have to do. So
this is a bummer.
I realized
You had to get that you could automate coal into the coal factory,
Yeah.
but to automate the coal, you have to have a source of power.
Yes.
And it can't be the coal factory.
no. Well, it can be.
Eventually.
Yes, but so this is
So
this is funny.
annoying.
This is what I was doing was like I had a when I was building my coal factories.
Yeah.
I had a separate little factory of the stick generators.
Yeah.
Off to
Yeah.
the side that
Yep.
I would like
Yep.
attach and deattach. It's basically like a starter engine.
Yes.
Yeah, to get
That's
everything
so
going.
annoying.
Then you can shut it
so
all
annoying.
down.
Like I do get what you mean by annoying, but I feel like it has to be that way.
It
Like,
does.
I would
The
not be
the logic
into the
makes sense.
game.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong. The logic is sound.
Yeah.
Like, but it is an extra part of this. You've done this monumental thing of building the coal factory, hooking up the steam, getting the coal into the coal factory, or whatever it is, and now it's like, well, you're gonna do another thing, and it's really annoying, and you gotta do it. And it's only for the first time you do it, but then you don't have to worry about it. But you have to do it once.
No,
Come on,
it's not.
guys.
It's not always the first time you have to do it because, you can, like,
You can automate the coal into
no,
the coal factory.
you can't. You can, but I'm saying that if there is some reason why one of your coal factories shuts down, the whole thing shuts down, and then you have to reattach your like starter engine basically to the grid again to start the whole thing up again. And around this time is when I started looking at like realizing of like how much of a resource you can take and how much you can divide it amongst like the buildings because my coal factories were constantly shutting down and I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized, oh, I've got too many attached to the one water supply. So I worked out how many water supply can run off like one water producer. And then I realized how many coal things can be funneled into how many
You
like
start getting the spreadsheets out, basically.
yeah, I basically started getting spreadsheets out, and that is how I've been playing ever since. Is like all I'm thinking about is like how much
Yeah.
does this resource produce? How much does this place take? How much does that equal out into? And then how many more facilities do I need to like evenly distribute the production across the entire like factory?
You say that's now you're playing this way.
Yeah.
When was the last time you played it?
What's that?
When was the last time you played Satisfactory?
Probably like 3 weeks, maybe
No,
4
well, that doesn't make
weeks
any sense
ago.
because just 2 weeks ago was the last podcast where we were talking about it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, but yeah, okay,
No,
sure.
well, the last
A month
time I
ago.
played was when PoE 2 came out.
Okay, yeah.
Cool
Well,
segue.
that is a great segue to the next question. Hey guys, congrats on the massive PoE 2 reveal. During the Endgame Atlas expansion, I was struck with the realization that this system was iterable to a ridiculous degree. Assuming the map is a procedural generation, then adding new content that is more varied than ever should be much easier. The mind boggles at the concept of a league where the Atlas spawns islands with ports instead of a sprawling continent. Mind-blowing. Great work, GGG. So, PoE 2 is in early access.
Yep.
That means functionally it's out, right?
We can finally talk about it.
Yeah. First 3 acts.
Yep.
And then the first 3 acts again.
Yep.
And then one more time the first 3 acts. And then the end game, right?
No, there's not the. There's
What was
not
it?
merciless.
There's
It's
no
just
merciless,
cruel.
just cruel.
Yeah, just you go through twice. So
okay.
it's 6. So it equals out as 6 acts, which will be
Gotcha,
the full game
gotcha.
eventually, and then you get into maps.
The end game. Cool.
Yeah.
I am revealing my ignorance here because I am only into Act 3 in normal.
Yeah.
But it's fine. So if you have not played PoE 2 and you don't want things spoiled, stop listening. Well, no, don't stop listening. Just turn the volume down because we want those views.
We want those views.
listens.
Just mute
You got it. If you don't want to hear it, you got to hit like and subscribe. That's the rule.
Definitely subscribe if you don't want to hear this.
You got to subscribe. If you don't wanna hear
Yeah, I would.
it. That's how you skip it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'm the only one
you're-
who hasn't worked on PoE in the last.
Well, this
3 or
is
so
the thing.
years.
I am interested in your opinion because I have been so submerged in this for like years now
Yeah.
that my point of view. Like there are things where like you might be like, this is like obtuse
Yes.
or like,
So-
and I would just be like, what are you talking about? It's blah blah blah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the technical hurdles I've hit.
Sure.
One, now a lot of this could be because of my specific setup. So I'm playing in my office.
Mm-hmm.
My office is connected wirelessly through a repeater.
Mm.
And I've noticed when I play, I get rhythmic lag spikes.
Yeah.
Every 2 seconds, it is as if it drops a few frames, or it freezes for a few frames,
Yeah.
and then it continues.
I think you need to run a cord out to
simply
cross
not
your
going to do that.
driveway.
Yeah. Where the car drives, I'll just put
Put a mat over it.
just sort of a waist height cord.
Yeah, waste time.
There's
Tunnel.
that. I've hit a lot of larger lag spikes, and these large lag spikes can last for anywhere from like a few seconds to indefinitely. And I've noticed the game
Yeah.
does not disconnect me. In PoE1, the game would disconnect me if the lag spike was
No,
long
it
enough.
does a thing now. Maybe
It'll pause.
yeah, it'll pause.
It doesn't pause. Because when it does catch up, it fast forwards all the
Okay.
action.
Yeah.
So I had this in PoE1 when I tried
Yeah.
playing over Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And I just stopped playing over Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think.
I don't have a choice on that front.
Yeah.
The third technical hitch is I will have the frame freeze visually, but not the gameplay freeze. Usually this ends with either something saying a resource couldn't be made, or
Oh.
that the texture resource is something or other. But there are technical glitches where it's just like the game visually freezes. I can hear the audio continuing. I can hear combat happening. I can still participate in combat,
Yeah.
but nothing visually
That's
changes.
strange.
Those are the technical hitches.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Some of this is almost certainly because of my setup.
Yeah.
Some of this might just be specific to my system that needs to be fixed more on the game side. So hopefully those bug reports are going through. Things I really like about gameplay. I think the dodge roll is great. I think playing with the WASD is really fun. I think a lot of those early boss encounters are really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
What about the difficulty of some of those bosses? Because that has been worked on constantly over the last year since
Yeah.
ExileCon.
Well, now again, here's a caveat. Only sort of at the start of Act 3.
Yeah.
Also, I might be a certified bad gamer. So some of the boss fights were kind of quite easy, and some of them were massive difficulty spikes, and they could be right next to each other.
Mhm.
So, for example, in the graveyard in Act 1, you go into a tomb, and you fight like this sort of sword guy, and he has like this quite long attack combo, and he's pretty difficult. But if you can learn the skills, and you can kind of move out of the way, and it's fine. Then you fight his little lady friend, and she has a barrage. There's one where she like locks you in place, and she does a barrage in that specific area. But there's another barrage she does just wherever you're standing, and that second barrage it killed me like 6 or 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
It had a pretty short wind up, and it just got me every single time. It was super high damage.
That's really interesting because like both those bosses I've never had a problem with.
Yeah,
What kind
I
of character
didn't.
were you playing?
Mercenary.
Okay, what were you playing?
I've started. I played a bit as a warrior,
Mhm.
up until I want to say like Act 3. I didn't end up enjoying the warrior gameplay so much. Then I played some mercenary, which I made it to maybe halfway through crawl on, and I got a witch to early maps.
Yeah, so I'm playing as a witch.
Yeah.
And those I struggled specifically with the female.
Interesting.
boss that
How much are you moving around? Are you
Tons.
constantly moving?
Constantly.
Ah, that's so strange.
But then there's a boss you fight Lachlan immediately after
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
Easy.
Yeah, he can wreck melee though.
Yeah, I died to him on in fact, I think on like 2 of my characters a few times.
Yeah, he was a breeze.
He's
I don't know what you guys are complaining about. Easy
yeah.
game.
So it's so much. The thing that I find interesting is that so much depends on melee versus ranged. Like
Yeah,
some bosses are
almost
just
certainly.
straight up easier for melee, and other bosses are just easier for range.
Now, I have noticed there was a boss. I'm trying to remember who it was. It
Mm.
might have been the first boss in Act 2, who's like the
The
hyena,
hyena,
boss.
yeah.
But it
Oh,
might have
yeah,
been
that
someone
one's
else.
hard.
But I noticed that there were different behaviors based on my proximity,
Mm.
Yeah.
which I know, from working on PoE how that is set up,
Mhm.
and that might be the reason there is such a disparate level of
Mm.
balance, where it's like a boss has a big heavy slam, and he will use it regardless of whether you're melee or ranged.
Mhm.
So ranged has an easy time because they
Yep.
don't need to worry about it, and melee has a hard time because they struggle. And then, or the boss has this long range thing that he only uses
Mm.
when the enemy is far away,
Yep.
and it does mega damage. And melee doesn't even know it happens,
Yeah.
because it's never procced. And
Yep.
I think that is the case with the hyena or whichever boss it was. He was doing
Mm.
this sort of long ranged ground slam thing that did a line of damage and would take down 90% of my health in one hit.
Mm.
Yeah, the hyena one, I think I found that if I'm closer, I had an easier time.
The Devourer boss in Act 1 as well.
Yeah, the
also,
Devourer boss for sure.
significantly
Yeah.
easier.
It was really rough. In I think it was the Exile build, because he was like he really wrecked you if you were range. Like
Yeah.
like he would just like wreck you completely with
It's
range.
that poison spit thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and he's been tweaked a little bit, but he's still he'll still, if you're not careful, he'll still wreck you. It's just like a little bit.
There
more
is
forgiving.
nothing as a ranged character stopping you from getting in close.
Yeah,
And,
that's
it
what I was doing. I
actually-
was like,
but you don't.
getting in
You
close.
have to know that is the thing.
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's the difference. Is like once you. That's how I beat the hyena boss. Was like, well, I'll get in close
Yeah.
because it seems like he doesn't use that
Mm.
skill, and it was kind of breezy after that.
Mm.
And in fact, there is one character, one boss that I think is just simply maybe broken. It was, it's kind of early on, or maybe middle of Act 2. It's this sort of burning lady inside of like a cave. and
Oh yeah,
She uses like explosive skills.
yes.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah. The
And
the grenade,
Yes.
the flamethrower lady.
Oh,
in
yeah.
in
I think her name is maybe
Quarry.
Raja or something like that. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different character.
It's where you get it's where you save what's her name from?
Risu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you save her from.
I think maybe yes.
Yeah.
But all I know is this character. She has this move which is like a combo of hits,
Yeah.
and if she hits you, you die.
There's that. Yeah, I get you. And I've had wildly different experiences with that, because first time I encountered her, fine, just wrecked her, no
Yep.
problem. Second time I went through with a friend of mine, and we were both just dying
Yep.
because of this like move
That
that they
combo.
where they
She
almost
just
like
starts
drunkenly start swinging around.
swing, stops.
Yeah.
And if you get hit by any of those,
Yeah.
you explode and die.
Yeah.
And she is fast, and you have to basically stop what you're doing and just run away.
Yeah.
But you
You got to know.
you got to know
Yeah,
that.
that's
And I also think it's not this is some Dark Souls in my opinion, some Dark Souls bullshit, where it's like there's a move that kills you,
yeah.
and you got to know that
I
about
don't
the
know
move
if
that
that
kills you.
does she flash red when she does that? Because that's usually the move that is like, this can kill you. If they flash red, you're like, this is going to do a load of damage if it hits you.
I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing: it doesn't matter because I don't think in an action RPG a move that kills you is a good idea.
Yeah.
When I will say there are boss fights
Yeah.
where like health flask management and mana flask management has been really important.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I think that is much more interesting.
Yeah.
Where it's a war of it, you can have high damage skills,
Mm.
but you shouldn't have one shot skills.
Sure.
High damage skills, and it becomes a case of
Mm.
do I think I can take a second hit?
Mm.
And then it's like managing flasks. It's a decision.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Mm.
Especially if some well-timed dodges mean that you don't spend as much of those
Exactly.
resources.
Exactly. But when it's like 80% of your health, then you have to use the flask.
Mm.
There's not a decision there. Or if it's all of your health, there was no decision there at all, other than to just either grind more or find out why you're dying. In which case, I think maybe that boss is probably dealing. Maybe it was fire damage and you had high fire resistance.
Mm.
Resistances are a mechanic that from my own time working on monsters, you do not know what a player has, especially early on in the game,
I
and that
think-
makes balance a nightmare.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The honest to God answer is do not make elemental damage high,
Mm.
make it attrition.
Mm.
And like small elemental hits, so it doesn't really matter if they've got elemental
Yeah.
resistances because it accumulates.
Well, wasn't PoE1 also? You had to know that enemies coming up did elemental type so that you could prepare for it.
Yeah, eventually that
Like,
becomes the
I remember
case.
so early
Yes.
on in when I was playing PoE1 that medicine chest
Yeah,
quest.
Get
There's
get
that
some
frost guy there that
resistance.
just like was
Yeah.
constantly wrecking me,
Ah.
and there's like no way to know that like that's going to be a thing.
But he's
He
also
used to hit hard.
he used to hit
too.
very hard.
Yeah.
There's I guess there's a couple arguments there. One is yes, that is the thing,
Mm.
and it's just, and to some degree is a sign of like skill and experience that you gear yourself
Yeah.
Mm.
for the
Yeah.
thing you're gonna face.
Yeah.
But there's another case here where in Act 1 of PoE1, it was mostly frost damage you were dealing with, right? Yes, there's Hail Rake,
Mm.
but then there's also Merveil,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
that was the real test of your frost resistance.
Yeah.
And you could kind of learn over the course of the act,
Yeah.
I probably
Yeah.
want to get some frost resistance. I would say for Act 1, even kind of all over the map.
Mm.
Like there is poison in the first area. There's a bunch of frost in the end boss, but there's also a bunch of like physical in the end boss or some whatever the red.
Yeah, I think it's like, is that bleed? I don't know
That's a great question.
what that is. That is,
Yeah. Good
it
point.
basically just drains your life,
Yes.
like some kind of vampire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not.
But yeah,
so-
like, I get what you mean, because leading up to the Count fight, who was like doing frost stuff.
yeah. There's also fire.
There's
Tons
like-
of fire in the
Oh, yeah.
burning village,
Yep.
right? And so it's a little bit all over the map,
Mm.
which is okay if you're not expected to have those resistances.
Yeah,
but it felt at times like you kind of have to.
Yeah, I've basically just been trying to keep all my resistances up
Yeah.
always, like the whole lot of them. You know.
I did not get good resistances on any of my characters.
Hmm.
I struggled with gear a lot.
Yeah.
Did you
on
use-
all
am too.
three of
Did you
them.
use? You would have used runes, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't really trade or anything, so I was using all the currency I was getting.
Yeah, I don't trade either.
I felt like it was an interesting lack of resources. Like I was always striving to try and cover the bases and not quite getting there, which was great until I got to maps, and then I started just dying a lot
Yeah,
because
that's,
I hadn't.
that's not fun.
And like I had a look on the trade site, and I could have like fixed my whole thing. And
Yeah.
I just didn't, and I didn't want to.
At that
Yeah.
point,
I'm also like not great at the game. like
I totally get people who want to play the trade game,
Mm.
but that's a different game.
Mhm.
It's
yes,
no longer the action RPG experience that I want. That's a trading simulator, and I've played those games. Those are fun,
yeah,
but that's not the one I'm playing PoE for.
Mm.
I think the gear is interesting. I also think the way attributes are being dealt out is interesting and a little bit annoying, to be perfectly honest. So, like the way you assign attributes on your passive tree,
Mm.
at least in my experience so far, I am assigning them based on what I think my character wants and not what I think my character needs, and then I discover later on he actually needs something else. So, for example, like I gave my witch a bunch of int
Mm.
and a little bit of dex and strength, so I could use some of the gems I have, and then I get an actually pretty solid body armor that requires like 33 strength, and I've got like 20.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, they're much skimpier on
Yeah.
attributes in this game than in
Yeah.
PoE1.
yes,
You literally get half the attributes. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have half the requirements. Maybe you do. I don't know. I'd have to go back
Yeah.
and have a look.
Yeah.
But it feels a little bit like there's a lot less room for error.
Mm. There were definitely points where I was like, I didn't realize I was writing my character so close to like
the attribute
the
requirement.
attribute requirements.
I almost bricked my character
Yeah.
because I got like a sick shield or whatever, and I put it on, and I sold my old shield, and I went out, and I was like, my skills are gone.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, that happened to me a few times.
And then I went back into town, and I was like, oh, that's fine. I'll just buy back my shield. Oh, my shield's gone too.
Oh no. The buyback didn't.
The buyback is gone when you leave the area.
Oh, that's tough.
That's bad. You shouldn't have that.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, there were a couple of times where I did have to like backtrack on the passive tree and get some extra attributes.
Yeah, I did
because
that
I'd have something that's like, like an amulet that's giving like a load of extra like plus to all attributes or something, and I kind of didn't realize how low my attributes actually were.
Yeah. I don't mind that. But it is when the choice is given to you on the tree, it feels.
I think I know what
it feels like it's more flexible, but then you're also it's easy to make it's easy for that to become your mistake.
Yeah,
and that feels a bit bad.
I get you because I felt that as well. It's like, so I'm playing strength dex, so obviously,
strength dex.
Yeah, so I just basically do that, but then my int is so low that it's like, if I need anything that's int required, or if I've gone too far into dex and I don't have enough strength, it's like what is the ratio that I kind of like need?
Yeah.
And forcing you to make those decisions kind of early on can be, a little bit like you're not sure if you've made the right choice.
Yes. You could easily corner yourself into a mistake without knowing it.
Yeah.
But you can just respec them with gold.
Yeah, and respecing.
I just did a lot.
Yeah, I basically ended up doing that as well, and I've respecing is so much easier now.
I made the mistake of trying to buy a bunch of random gear to fix my attribute problem. Because I was like, I don't think I can fix some of these attribute issues just on the tree. But that's fine. I did eventually kind of worm my way out of that problem.
Like I don't think it's a huge problem. It's just a thing of like it's giving you an extra decision that you didn't have to make really in PoE1 because you just follow the highway or whatever, and you just get whatever attributes are along there.
The passive tree also has the double weapon thing, which I don't have a second weapon equipped, and I fully understand the intent. I don't know if or when I will engage with the second weapon.
You might not. You might not ever, and you don't need to. The way I'm playing is like I don't think I could play without a second weapon now.
Okay.
After experiencing it with a second weapon, so I'm going crossbow and bow.
Yeah.
And both their skills synergize so nicely.
Right.
That when I start a new character, I'm going to be looking for like, okay, what other second weapon will synergize well with this? And I have used the weapon skill points.
Yeah.
But it did take me. It took planning ahead because I knew I wanted passives that just affected the crossbow and passives that just affected the bow, but they were quite far away from each other on the skill tree. So basically, I was spending skill points to get passives that I couldn't use for like 20 levels.
Yeah.
But then once I got there, I had all these weapon slot skill points in the bank that I just filled out this entire like section.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
but it took planning ahead to be like and getting my head around how those things work.
Yeah. I think if and when I engage with it, it'll be a great system.
Yeah.
However, actually, the physical act of engaging with it was fiddly. I did try the first time, and it was like, okay, so I have to manually select that these are points for a weapon, and then toggle them on. And it's not like those points are separated from your core points. So even though it says like weapon 1 8 or whatever, what it actually means is if you have 8 points, you can assign them to one weapon.
Well,
but I have no points, so.
Yeah. Well, what I do like is you don't have to use it. Like you get quests that are like, here's like 4 weapon skill points.
Yeah.
But you can just use them as regular points.
Yes.
You don't you don't have to like.
Yeah.
They're not points that are going to waste because you're using them. It's if you want to use them, you sacrifice 1 point for 2 points that can be spent on each weapon.
I think it's a 1-to-1 relationship, isn't it?
No, it's 1 to 2. You spend a skill point, and you get 1 weapon point for slot 1, one weapon point for slot 2.
Yeah, but you're functionally getting 1 point.
Yeah.
You're essentially splitting your character down the middle.
Yes.
And each character has the same number of points.
Yeah.
But that's like I think that like probably that's going to be a cool system if and when I engage with it. I don't know if or when I will.
I mean, you might not. You literally might not because I know plenty of people just go through with 1 weapon and it's completely fine.
Yeah.
But after experiencing like how well
Sure.
these synergize together, I'm like, I would really be looking for like weird synergies now with other things.
The weapon skills are cool, but as a like sorcerer or whatever, I think a stormcaller, storm chaser, whatever
Right.
my ascendancy is, I don't really use my weapon skills specifically. I just use the weapon with the highest stats to use the actual skills I've chosen. I can imagine there are some skills I've seen on weapons where it's like, oh, discipline, that would be a nice one to have, but the weapon itself has bad stats, so I don't use it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a.
And I mean,
I don't have that experience that you have where the weapon skills are relevant yet.
What about a thing of like? I mean, if that's got a skill on it. I don't know. I haven't played because you'll be using what, staffs or wands?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are wands even in the game?
Yeah.
They are. Okay.
Yeah, they
even
are.
noticed.
I've been using them.
Okay. Yeah. So you're using staff. So there's a skill on
Wands.
the staff, right? Oh,
Wand.
wands. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
skill on the wand.
Yes.
And you have different skills on different wands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
different wands
there
have
are
different skills.
different
Sure. Yeah.
So you can just like use a different weapon slot for one that has like a particularly good skill that might not necessarily.
Good. But what I'm
affect
saying
your
is, I don't care about what the skill is.
Yeah.
What I care about is the stats on the weapon.
Oh, I see. I
right?
see. Yeah.
My
yeah,
wand has +1 to all gems.
Yeah.
Or all skills
Yeah.
or whatever, and that's like
Okay.
that's better than like the level 5, level 9 fireball or whatever.
I get
I would rather have a level 4 chaos bolt or whatever on my wand and a +1 to all of the skills that I do
Yeah.
use, which is mainly spark.
I get you, but I'm saying that if there is a wand that you find in the future that has, this is a cool skill.
Yeah.
That
Totally agree.
weapon
I'm
swap
not
that,
disputing that at all.
and the weapon swapping is automatic.
yes.
Right?
However,
So
what happens if the attributes on one weapon swap disable the skills?
just make sure that doesn't happen.
So there's a whole there's a whole can of worms
Yeah.
with the weapon swapping that I have not even looked at yet. But
That
I'm
is,
sure
I think, where a lot of the build diversity is going to be coming from, and I
The
think it
two
already.
weapons?
Yeah,
Yep,
I think it already
probably.
has.
yeah.
I played my character. I've played 2 mercenaries. One with just straight crossbow, and I was like, it's fine. I was like, it's pretty good.
Sure.
It was fine, but I was like, it's not. I didn't feel as good as I expected. And then my second character, I paired that with a bow, and bow does have access to all the bow skills and stuff, and lightning rods, for example, synergize really well with this lightning shotgun.
The
that I've got.
galvanic shot.
Yeah, and it's like the most enjoyable feeling
Yeah.
using
Cool.
those two together.
Yeah, I want to try a different character. I think I've got a few uniques.
Yeah.
I want to try a monk, for example. I think I've got like the bloodthorn or whatever that like starter staff unique is. That I think would probably be well.
Yeah.
It's like a melee staff. So
Yeah.
it seems like that'll
I
be
think
solid.
I think I've got that too.
Um,
I found a bunch of uniques that were not for my character.
yeah.
But like, that's the cool thing, is that you find these things and go, well, I didn't think about playing a monk before, but now I've got this
Yes.
unique.
But it's also a case of, well, I'm hitting a wall with this character, so I guess I'll try
Yep.
something else.
Yep. Monks are really good. Like if you're in a you played in a party, right?
Yes. Yes.
Have you played in a party with someone putting down the monk bell?
No.
Oh my god, dude. So I was playing in a party with one of my mates, and he's a monk, and he puts down his bell, and then I go to my shotgun, and I just blast away at this bell, and it does so much damage.
So like you attack the bell and then the bell deals
And the bell
damage.
does all this like radial
cool.
damage.
Yeah.
And it's like normally like he would hit the bell, but he doesn't have the speed of
Of your shotgun.
the shotgun.
So you just blasted a bunch.
Yeah. And it's so that is also like incredibly satisfying.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so fun that I'll hit the bell even when there's no enemies nearby, just because it's like so awesome to hit.
this makes a cool sound.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll touch on, first of all, I want to say broadly, environment's gorgeous.
Oh, thanks.
The website is also present.
It is. You could buy the game. Well, a while after the game was out, you could buy the game.
How much of the in-game store did you deal with? Or are you
We
strictly
own
website?
strictly website. We make the APIs that it talks to.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not explored much of the website, Paul. I'm very sorry. I can't touch on your work in a deep way, other than to say,
I mean, I didn't do much
Is
of the PoE2 site.
Okay,
That was
great.
mostly someone else on the team.
but the environments are absolutely gorgeous.
Man,
I
Did-
do wish that when I burned the wheat, it burned a little lower.
oh man, I wish. So here's the wheat.
I wanted it to spread out.
I want more things to damage the wheat.
I want. Oh yes.
I want lightning to damage the wheat. Even like maybe like
Sword
physical
swings.
attacks. You
Yes.
know?
Cut down the
That'd
you
be
know?
cool.
Yeah.
And this was so much like back and forth of like me with like the engine guys
Yeah.
as well, because and VFX guys, because it's like more complicated than I realized.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I want to happen more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember fire would spread a bit in PoE1, and I don't think it seems to spread much.
There's only some fire skills too that do that actually burn it.
Well, I used wall of fire.
Yeah, wall of fire is one of them. But like we were testing this, and it's like skills that you would think would do it.
Like
didn't really do
fireball
it.
probably doesn't because it passes through,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
But I would love in the new year. Well, now it is this year. I really want to look into getting more of that damage, because I have an idea for a map that will basically rely on that wheat getting damaged.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm keen to hear about that
Yeah.
later.
We'll talk about that later.
Um,
But man, talking about environments, so it's been so much work.
yeah.
It's been so much work, and also, we've been working on this for quite a few years, and the quality bar. I don't know if you've noticed, but the quality bar between acts is constantly going up.
Yeah.
So Act 3, I think, looks fantastic, and the future acts also look fantastic. I mean, Act 2 looks also great as well, and Act 1 does now, but it didn't always.
Yeah.
Because we'd started that so long ago that it was right before last Exile Con that we were sitting down and looking at Act 1, even though it had been done for a couple of years. And we
Yeah.
were like,
This
isn't up
cut the mustard
to
anymore.
scratch anymore.
Yeah.
This isn't as good as Act 2, Act 3, and onwards. So we had to go back and
I mean, I noticed in the hunting
revamp
grounds-
the entire area.
Even in the hunting grounds, the level of fidelity of the grass had increased. I
Mm.
remember when we put that grass tech in for the first ExileCon 2019.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is really cool. It's like, it looks all spiky and
Yeah.
and now it's like, oh, this looks like natural grass.
Yeah.
And
It's
like,
that grass
it's
is really
improved.
cool. That's all like physics stuff
Yeah.
as well. That's all shader stuff. It's like
not really there.
no, it's it's literally like
geometry.
it's not geometry,
Yeah.
and it's not geometry in such a way that when we actually build it, it is literally just a flat plane above the
Yeah.
ground, and that determines how high the grass is.
Mm.
And it just like there's no individual strands at all in the
Yeah.
actual like 3D scene. It's just a flat green plane
Yeah.
that is like a volume basically of like the grass.
It looks great, but it
It-
looks better than it used to, which is saying something, because it also looked great back then.
Yeah, it was.
but I think that the environment team has absolutely killed it.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I think the character and our animation teams are killing it. Like visually, amazing
Yeah,
looking game.
the animations are just incredible. I think.
Yeah.
Like I mean, people, streamers, when they see it, they're always talking about how just like crisp and like fluid the animations
Yes.
are, and how clear they are. Like
Yes.
they're really really good.
Yeah. The thing that has bothered me the most, and it's such a nitpicky thing, some of the names of rare monsters, the names of generic monsters,
Yeah.
the names of bosses,
Okay.
the names of characters. In Act 1,
Yeah.
there's a character called Draven, and there's a character called Oriana.
Mm.
Both of these are League of Legends heroes.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, really?
What are you doing? Do a Google search.
That's
And
funny.
there's, I remember, I can always tell when I've done a name and when I haven't done a name.
Yeah.
Because in Acts 1 and 2, there's a few characters, like there's a bunch of like random monsters where I named them.
What'd you name?
Oh, tons. Like, if you in it, there's like the city with the tower, the spires. You know what I'm talking about? In Act 2.
Yep.
There's like you climb those towers.
Yep.
And at the bottom there's like these insects, and they're called rasps.
Oh.
and I call them rasps because
Yeah.
a rasp is like a file that you use in wood that's all jagged and
Yeah.
like carves away at the wood, and the insect has these sort of jagged parts on it.
Oh, that's very cool.
It sounds like wasp.
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
jagged.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would suit that kind of
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
And then later on in that act, you're chasing Jamonra, which I think I also may have named. Maybe not. It's hard to remember. It's been 5 years or whatever since we named that character. But you're on his juggernaut. I think what they call it, the giant rolling
Dreadnought.
dreadnought.
Yeah.
That's the one. And then you're looking at his little henchmen. They're rushing at him, and it's like Ferrodin soldier, Ferrodin spearman. It's like, okay, I mean, like, sure, but there's no flavor there.
I guess what
it's
you
just
mean.
it's just telling me exactly
Yeah,
what it is. I want it to be like Ferrodin True Believer,
Yeah.
or like
I
Blood,
get you.
yeah, like Sand Sworn Spearman, something that is a
yeah.
little more flavorful and maybe tells you a little bit about like why is he signing up, like desperate soldier,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. That tells me something about the
I get you.
situation they're in.
There was when I was at media design school, I remember doing one of the game projects we had. There was this thing that we had to like write basically a story for a game.
Sure.
And one of the sort of like tips basically that the tutor gave us was like, when you're coming up with like names for things, write down your first like 5 or 10 ideas.
Yeah.
And then go with like the 11th.
Yeah.
Because
Get all the
get generic ones out of the way,
Yep.
and then you end up with like something interesting that's different.
Yeah. There was even in like the Valley of the Titans or whatever it's called, the place with all the big statues. There, when you're outside, there's these big skeleton things, and I'm pretty sure there is like one of them was called Walking Goliath.
Yeah.
And it's a big skeleton, right? And then you go inside, and there's like a fleshy version of it, and it's just called Goliath. And I was like, well, why is the skeleton one called Walking Goliath, and the one that's got skin on called Goliath?
It's actually floating.
Well, it just
Just by a little bit. You can't
They're both
tell.
walking though.
Yeah.
No, but technically one of them's floating.
But why are we not acknowledging that one of them has skin and one of them doesn't? It's just there was just like,
Yeah.
and these are so little tiny nitpicks.
These-
but it was also the area that I was like, I paid a lot of attention to when I was there, because I often feel that names tell a story in and of themselves, and they help fill out the world. Because
I get you. It's it feels like something that like you don't really notice.
it pierces
But
your brain subconsciously.
Yeah, it's that thing of like Red Letter Media has this thing where they're like, you might not have noticed, but your brain did.
Yes, exactly.
It's that sort of
That's
thing.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And there are some other things like that. I don't. The one that I specifically even told Rory, one of the game designers, I was like, I think you should change this. There's a support gem
Yeah.
called Fast Forward.
Oh, right.
Guys, where do you get the phrase fast forward from, Paul?
A remote.
Like for a TV or like
Yeah.
a VCR or like a DVD player?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are those in Rayclast?
You didn't find them?
Couldn't. I looked around on the.
Doriani's.
I looked in the caravan. I couldn't find the Blu-ray.
You didn't get to the
yeah.
secret.
You got to go to the
Blockbuster.
TV witch hut
Oh, right.
and then
But-
hidden under the bed.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That bothered me more than it should have, though.
I can-
Seeing
I
something
can
called
see that,
Fast Forward,
yeah.
I was like, this is so anachronistic. And like, I get you. It's very easy to go for something that like communicates the idea to a modern audience, but it's not. You have to consider in world and still communicate the idea to a modern audience.
Yeah.
So I had pitched like, and this is not a perfect name, but I think it would be a better name. But like impatience, it's a
What does it actually do? Is it faster projectiles or something?
it shortens the duration of skills with a duration.
Oh, okay.
So like you would probably use it for I think it's called Firebolt or something. There's a skill where you're like the character casts a bunch of things and the little balls of fire appear above their head, and then after a delay they fire off.
Oh, yep.
Right? So you
I
want
really
to
liked that skill.
Huh?
I really liked that skill. I really wanted to use it. I couldn't, but
Because of the delay, right?
I couldn't make it work. But
It's a huge bummer
it-
to use because of that delay.
feels amazing.
Until you try and use it in combat.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh no, you have to be able to predict the enemy coming
Ember
off screen.
fuselage or something? Fuselage?
Burning fuselage. Yes, fuselage. Something like that.
Yeah.
But so they've got a support gem that shortens the delay. Perfect. Great. But you shouldn't call it fast forward. That's what I think.
I mean, yeah, fair.
I also hit a bug with the skill gem support gem system. To this day I do not know how I hit it. I told Rory about it. I wanted to use Pierce for Spark. It is one of the recommended things for Spark. I tried. I got a support gem that dropped from a witch. I tried to use it. I selected Spark, and it said that operation cannot be completed.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I tried it over and over and over again,
Weird.
every time for Pierce, and it was always that operation cannot be completed. Then I tried it for. I was like, well, let's try it with a different thing. Worked fine.
Huh.
And then I got a different support gem and made Pierce.
Were you able to slot it into Spark though?
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's
you
a
couldn't-
recommended support.
But you couldn't make it from
Couldn't make it from that specific
the
support
menu.
gem.
Strange.
And I think I had disconnected during that fight because I was hitting all these other technical issues.
Yeah.
And when I came back on, I assumed the witch was dead. There was no loot. There was just a support gem on the ground. So my theory is there's some weird thing where a support gem's ID is attached. But I don't know because it worked fine to make another skill.
Yeah.
Mm.
So no, man. It was an odd one. No one seemed to know what the problem was.
Don't know, man. I'm not the guy to
Anyway.
to ask about it either.
But, broadly speaking, cool game. Good job, guys.
I had a lot of fun playing.
It's great. I'm enjoying it so much.
Mm.
Like I played a bunch of like PoE1, but like
Yeah.
2 has hooked me in a way that like 1 didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. There's quadrillas.
Oh yeah.
Why not go with Forilla?
I like Quadrilla. I really like that name a lot.
But do you like it more than Forilla? Forillas?
I like. Look, we could have both. There's no reason.
If you're going to
We
go
just
with
have-
a weird punny name, go with the one that rhymes.
we can
I don't know,
we can do
maybe-
both. I don't see why not. I really like the name Quadrilla. I
Okay.
think that's really neat. Yeah, that gorilla boss though. Have you encountered that guy yet?
Yeah, I beat him.
You did.
Yeah, he took a while.
Oh, yeah.
That was another one where 1 or 2 hits.
Yeah,
die.
don't get hit with the slam.
He's definitely a
He's very clear where he's slamming though.
he's definitely a melee has an easier time, I think.
Yeah.
His range, like that pillar thing.
Yes,
Can
Goes
basically
far
reach.
and fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that boss, you just need to keep him on the screen.
Mm.
Yeah.
If you get him if he gets hidden behind like trees or something,
Yeah.
it's going to be significantly harder to see where the slam
Yeah.
goes.
Well, I actually think that if I have to make any comment about the balance specifically, I would say that the health for some of these bosses is a tad too high. I found a couple bosses, especially towards the end of Act 2, and maybe it's just because I hadn't gotten enough damage, or maybe it's because I've got like an old mana flask, but I found myself running out of mana
Yep.
before
wow.
with a quarter of the boss's health remaining.
Whoa.
Like that was a problem with Jamanra, the end of Act 2.
Yeah.
I found myself sort of dancing around, waiting for my mana to regenerate, and I was using skills that would increase my mana. Like there's a thing that.
What about your
drops mana.
regen?
Yeah, I actually had a unique that would turn my energy shield into mana.
Oh.
I forget what it's called. It's Visage of someone.
Yeah.
And that was really effective at giving me basically infinite mana, but no energy shields. So I swapped it off
Yeah.
so that I could not die in one hit to so many bosses. But then I found myself running out of mana.
I thought that some of the bosses had too much health, but I do really think that I was just dealing too little damage. It was
But
when I started switching characters to ones that were like,
A little more geared out.
yeah, or just better combinations of things. The attrition battles didn't feel like attrition battles at all anymore.
Did you also find that in Cruel?
The characters that actually made it to Crawl were kind of really starting to ramp at that point.
Yeah.
To the point where the game almost gets easier
Yeah.
as your...
This
That's definitely how I found it, where the bosses, when I got into Cruel, I basically had no problem with bosses.
Yeah.
this is something I had kind of predicted might be the case because of the structure of Act 1 feeling so deliberate,
Yeah.
but the scaling of an action RPG becoming absurd.
Mm.
I had a feeling that a lot of the sort of dodge roll, like deliberate usage of a skill, don't use a skill here so you can move out of the way kind of thing, would vanish. Is that the case as you getting towards
I wouldn't say vanish. I would say that essentially I end up focusing more on well-timed dodge rolls and dealing as much damage as I can the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I still have to use it a lot because the characters I have, their gear sucks.
Yeah.
So if I get hit, it's a bad time.
Yeah.
Try and not get hit. But you just have more synergies going on by that point. You've got more skills that interact with each other. Those interactions are doing more damage. So less methodical, but also I like my characters starting to feel stronger.
I like that too. It's I guess a question of like there are action RPGs where attack speeds and skill speeds don't become absurd. Path of Exile is not one of those games, and I don't know. Maybe they've changed that for PoE 2, but like my prediction is you will eventually get to the point where you're attacking 10 times a second, kind of thing.
I have seen some insane builds that I think might have been nerfed somewhat, but I have seen some insane builds that just like just burn like the final end game bosses just down.
Yeah.
That like it looks trivial, you know.
Yeah.
And this is like the top of the top kind of thing.
One thing I've noticed, there's not a lot of maybe I missed it, but there's not a lot of health on the tree.
Like there's none.
Yeah.
Not none.
Very little.
Very, very little.
And you can get energy shield. You can scale your energy shield. But it seems like they've quite intentionally made it so that they don't have to balance around widely disparate health pools. I think it's interesting that they didn't also do that for widely disparate things like attack speed or cast speed.
There's very little attack speed on the tree.
Is there?
Okay, I was I really wanted to get a lot of attack speed for my mercenary.
Yeah.
And
that's
could
good.
not find it.
Well, you can get
good.
Yeah, I mean
that's honestly good. But but then energy shield being prevalent on the tree is an odd one because it is functionally health.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
There's a funny thing with energy shield where it's also almost like armor and evasion. But then it's also almost like health.
It is health. If you do damage to a health point, you lose the health point. If you do damage to an energy shield, you lose the energy shield.
Yeah,
if you do damage to an evasion, nothing happens.
What I mean is that it occupies the same slot on armor, on gear, as armor and evasion do.
Yes. But it is not treated the same way.
No.
This is one of the issues with asymmetrical design, is you will have problems where over the long run, armor and evasion may mitigate the same amount of damage, and energy shield does not.
Yes.
Over the short term, armor may mitigate tons of damage, and evasion may mitigate no damage.
Yep.
And energy shield may mitigate the most. It may mitigate all damage. So it becomes a question of what is the type of fight. If it is a long fight, maybe armor and evasion are better. If it is a short fight, energy shield is going to be the best. If it is a fight with pauses in the middle, energy shield is going to be the best. If it is a fight with small hits, evasion might be the best.
There was I can't remember it exactly, but my mate that was playing a monk, he got, I think it was an ascendancy or something, or some skills or something that basically made his energy shield never run out.
Okay.
It would run out.
Yeah. Did it just constantly?
Or no, it was his health that would never. It had some synergy between health and energy shield that made it so that his health was basically never going to run out, unless it was under very specific circumstances.
Okay,
like
that
he would,
strong.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
I'm gonna have to look in that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna roll a monk next because I'm hitting a wall. I'm pretty.
Monk is great, but monk it's been so interesting seeing my friends play because seeing their journey of their opinions basically, and they start off saying this is too difficult. Everything's too difficult. It's way too tough. How are you supposed to get through this? Yeah. And then starting to get into like, oh, actually, I'm doing some decent damage now, blah, blah, blah. And then now it's just like, I'm a god. Yeah. I can't die.
Yeah. This is another thing. I mean, this is a classic PoE problem
Mm.
of reverse difficulty curves, where often the hardest part of the game is the start,
Yeah.
and then y- this is something they're trying to tackle. I can tell because of the way the bosses are structured,
Mm.
but I think becomes a problem in that you hit a point where difficulty only comes from damage spikes,
Yeah.
and damage spikes are not fun. You lose,
Yeah,
and
that's
it
true.
feels unfair. But that is how they managed difficulty in PoE 1.
Mm.
It was like overlapping axes of randomness would result in a high damage spike that kills you, and you have to do everything in your power to prevent the highest possible damage spike, which is maybe 1 in 10,000 monsters, right?
Mm.
Something silly. Whereas the start of the game is much more controlled, and there's not really a good solution. You can't balance for both in this kind of game, or at least the way it is currently structured. You could have monsters be slower. You could have monsters do less damage at the start of the game, and fights take a while, but they're more forgiving. And then towards the end of the game, they are faster. They deal more damage,
Yeah.
and it's more about resource management.
Well,
But I kind of feels like at this point, it's more spike avoidance.
yeah. I think like I think what's really good with the game currently is that the issues that people have are all basically just like balance stuff.
Yeah.
You know, which says to me that
From
hey,
your side of
I did
things.
my job.
Yes, yes. I was thinking the same thing. But this is the problem. This is a PoE.
Yeah, yeah. But to me, that's like these are the things that are like, for my mind, easier to deal with
Yes.
than like, oh, we have an entire area that just doesn't like work and nobody
Yeah.
knows why and or whatever. You know, to me, it's like this is exactly where we'd want to be. Is like
Yeah.
finding the little issues and,
Yeah.
and these problems because now we've got millions of people playing,
Yeah.
you know, and they're finding these ridiculous builds that we just didn't,
Yep.
you know, find before.
Yeah.
And you will never be able to find. all
They'll
of the-
always be. And
Yeah.
then what
a team
I
of 20
really
QA spending 6 months trying every possible build is going to be beaten within a day by 50,000 people.
Well, also-
it's just how the math works.
Yeah.
also trying them as those skills are evolving. Like, you know, the QA will do stuff and then stuff will get adjusted
Yes.
based on them, and then that you know, it's just this evolution until it eventually comes out, and then millions of people hit it and like, oh, here's all these like insane things that
Yes.
you know we've not imagined before.
But even if that wasn't the case, even if QA had a static game for a year,
Yeah.
They would never find.
one day of 250,000 players is going to beat
Yep.
years of a
Yes.
QA team going hard at it. It's just that's just how the math works out.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. But I think like it's the best place to be. Is,
Yep.
Is
And-
these things.
Huge congrats getting out of the door because that is a hard thing
It was-
to launch a game. I joined PoE 1
Yeah.
a few months after it launched,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I have never seen a game launched.
Well, it's been interesting. It's been interesting for me because I joined about a year before PoE 1 launched.
Yeah.
But from the stuff I was doing, I was basically junior at the time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really like
In the
I was just
weeds.
doing concentrating on my little areas,
Yeah.
making sure they look good and stuff like that. It's been a new experience for me dealing with like worrying about the wider game, you know,
Yeah.
the whole
No, I mean, honestly, the game looks fantastic.
yeah.
Paul, good job having everything stay relatively stable.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I haven't.
I
heard
mean,
anybody...
you could buy the game
yeah,
a little
Yeah.
while after it came out.
It's good.
Before it came out, it was fine. all the pre-orders, that stuff went fine.
great.
The
Awesome.
pre-orders, man, I don't even think I talked to you about like when we had all the pre-orders.
Yeah.
Were you worried?
Yeah. I mean, we knew the game was going to have a lot of eyes on it and
Yeah.
get a lot of traffic and stuff, but it's very hard to anticipate reality.
I couldn't believe it when we were told we'd hit like 1 million pre-orders
Fantastic.
or 1 million keys.
All right, we're well out of time.
Can I just ask one more thing?
Yeah.
Maybe this is a little self-indulgent.
Go for it.
What's your favorite area in the game?
That I've seen so far.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Let me think about this. Because there are a few areas that stood out as really pretty. The caves in Act 2 were really nice.
Oh, yeah, they're
both
nice.
like
Yep.
going up through to Trader's Pass and
Yep.
but also like the under the Titan area.
Oh yeah,
I thought those
yeah.
are both really it's much more stark looking,
Yeah.
but I also quite like how that contrast.
It's quite and that sort of thing, like the Titan Grotto. I think it's still called that. It's got that thing of like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it
You
feels
know, it's got
otherworldly,
these.
which is cool.
Yeah. I really like that kind of vibe.
So those really stood out, but I think a large part of that is the way the light plays with the environment in both of those areas. And light is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it makes and breaks an area.
yes. So those ones really stood out. In Act 3 right now, and I quite liked the termite-y looking area. I thought that was quite a
Oh
cool
yeah,
contrast.
that's nice.
I will say the first area of Act 3, which is like desert meeting
Yeah.
marsh,
Yeah.
I was a little bugged by like there's these little pools that are just sitting in the middle of the sand that have sticks poking out of them, and I'm like, what are the sticks for? Like, what are the sticks for?
They put them
Mr.
there.
Environmental.
The carver people. Is this what you're talking about? The
Yeah.
carver. They put them there.
Why?
Warn you, don't come here.
They're just sticks sticking out of the
Well,
water. And
they
you're
were
meant to know
originally.
that's a warning.
No, so they were originally probably like a totem thing, but over time they have fallen apart. Like
But
they
why
don't
did
build
they-
thing. You've seen the carver buildings. They are not like well built.
But why
They're
are they
just
sticking
hanging
them-
together.
Why are they sticking them in the water specifically, and not the sand?
It's because it looks good there.
It's
Who's to
all
say?
falling apart.
Who's to say this is
You
a
need a
marsh?
lore guy.
This is a marsh. Who's to say that isn't a recent development of a bit of a sinkhole?
Well, wouldn't that imply that is like where the sticks shouldn't be?
They don't know. Look, these carver people, they don't know.
Okay.
They're building stuff on sand, all right? That's they don't know.
No, but
exactly
they
what
weren't.
they're
My
doing.
whole point is that they're building stuff in the marsh. Anyway, but there's a lot of really pretty areas.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time choosing one.
I like that transition from marsh to jungle.
It is good.
I really like
It
that.
was quite
that
smooth.
That took a heck of a lot of back and forth as
Workshopping.
well, because it was like originally just this hard line, and we were like, this doesn't look good. What are
Yeah.
we going to do? And it's like there's like so many different ground textures that like
Transitionary tiles.
transitionary tiles. It's
yeah.
it's an area too that like Fabian, who's been on the podcast, obviously filled in.
No. He never filled in.
He hates that area.
Really?
Because every time he goes to the area, he finds another little like seam or like some
yes.
edge that's like
There were-
not like exactly perfect. Like
I will say in that area there are places where you can walk and a little square will appear flickering.
I don't know what the heck's going on with that.
Just on the sand.
But he would say every time he goes there, he would find new little like it was Seam City. You know, it was just like where tiles for play
I have
for people
not
listening.
seen a single seam.
That's probably because he
I've
spent like
not-
2 years
Oh,
going over
okay.
it. But every time he goes there, he still finds stuff. But he's like, you know what? I'm just going to let it slide because it's like players aren't noticing this. As long as there's no seams.
Yep.
I did send you a screenshot of
This is the thing of like working on a game that uses we reuse a lot of assets and a lot of textures and stuff in different areas. And sometimes making a change in one that is like optimizing it for that area
to fix another one.
affects another area that we didn't realize that was in.
It's a shared asset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did
Why you gotta
something.
duplicate and rename.
Yeah,
it.
so we often do that, and we usually will check areas that we're like, okay, well, we know that these particular things are used here. We'll check that, and then sometimes we just miss it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Happens.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm gonna have to play through. I'm gonna play through on my monk, and I'll tell you my favorite area.
What about you, Paul? Do you have a favorite area?
I don't know about favorite. I think I just really like Act 1.
Act 1 is
It is
nice.
I like that going through all the dark places at nighttime.
Mm.
Partly too because you're so weak at the start and
Feels very hostile. And
Yeah,
I would say that like
Dangerous.
the end boss of Act 1 and the lead up section to that was probably the most, I don't know, the music as well in that last boss fight. That
Yeah.
whole bit came together in like quite an amazing way, I think.
yeah, that last boss fight does some very epic feeling moments.
there's a part in that boss fight that I only just figured out going through Cruel, where do you know when he does the fog thing? He starts like saying some poem.
Yeah.
And when he pauses is when he jumps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not
So
notice
he's
that.
because neither did I. I was just like, when is he gonna think? So I'm just constantly rolling around and hoping that he doesn't jump
Yeah.
out. He'll like say some verse, pause and then jump.
Yeah.
So when you hear him pause, that's when you're like, okay, I need to like
Mm.
dodge pretty quick.
It's
And
almost like the
there's a-
lore and dialogue matters in games, and you should turn the sound on and listen to it. Isn't it, Blake?
I like to play with the sound off, and I'm blasting Papa Roach.
Oh, man. The
Oh,
thing
the
is,
other
he's
thing
not even
too
joking.
the other thing too about that bit is that you, as you are traveling through those areas, can see down
Yeah.
to where something is going on.
Yeah.
There's voices talking. I just really like that whole bit.
I've always liked trying to get more verticality in areas.
In your 2D game?
Yeah, and basically, yeah. Like,
Same.
I mean,
Same.
I've been trying to do that since PoE 1.
Yeah,
you know,
it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
And even like the towers area, like it's effective. The thing, it's just a limitation of the game. You can't have continuity.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you can't have the monsters you killed on the bottom floor appear on the second floor. You can't see that stuff. I wish you could, because I think that would be neat.
yeah.
But I know the game engine. All right, we'll be back hopefully in a couple weeks, like we
Yep.
always are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would, do you think you're going to get to Endgame?
Probably eventually.
I would love to hear. Well, I mean, Paul already got to Endgame, and I didn't even ask what he thought of it. So we can continue it next
I've
Yeah,
heard
it
bits and
makes sense.
pieces. We can talk about it next time. But yeah, I have thoughts on
I
it.
would love to hear what you guys think of that Endgame map, because that was a huge monumental task on,
Oh
on
yeah, I
our
haven't,
end.
I haven't even seen that yet. I haven't even seen the announcement yet. Well, we'll talk about it at some point in the future.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. Also, you can email us frenzyquestion@gmail.com or subscribe, blah, 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 comments. Bye! Love you, bye!
Is there anything story-wise or like story-wise or even like environmental storytelling that you noticed in PoE 2?
The sun temple.
Oh yeah.
That was hectic and felt like the combination of the environment dealing damage to you and
Yeah.
the bright glowy in the center felt
That's a tough place.
terrifying.
Yeah, that's a really tough place.
I think I'm approaching that area. I'm still only in I'm at the start of Act 3.
There
in the
was-
first difficulty.
There was an interesting